What's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Happy to be your host. Please do like, share, subscribe, support the platform however you can or however you would like. Thanks again to patrons and channel members getting to see this first. To those of you seeing this later, feel free to reconsider those life choices and or just enjoy yourself and welcome. Just had a few buying power items to clear off the docket and thought this would be a good time to go ahead and do it. So thanks again to all those who continue to send me these items and in some cases clips and helping me stay vigilant on this myth as it continues to recirculate and expand ever outward as imperialism tends to encourage. So thanks again, everybody, and let's see what's up. All right, this one is I think both fascinating and telling on a number of different levels. Immigration crackdown hurts small businesses in Kansas dependent on migrant customers. So for all the anti-immigration talk about what immigrants do and don't pay and how they do and don't contribute and all these claims that they just take and take and take, what is often ignored is how even so-called undocumented or illegal immigrants contribute to the economy. Among other things, the tax base. I mean, they contribute in many different ways, including cheap labor to exploitative businesses. But in this case, the focus is on the buying power. And for my limited purposes, again, to remind that buying power is, if anything, a measurement of the ability of any segment of the population to enrich those who own the economy. It is not a measure of economic power or strength. So as it says here, immigrants without legal status wield an enormous amount of buying power. The American Immigration Council says in 2023, it totaled nearly $300 billion. And again, no one would then argue that this, again, so-called illegal immigrant population has some sort of economic or certainly political power that's associated with this $300 billion. It is just a measurement of what, if at all, because again, these are based on estimates and projections, but it's a measurement, if at all, of what they spend, again, here on the local businesses in Kansas who are suffering. The small business owners are suffering as a result of the lack of consumption by those who are either being deported or afraid of being deported and are therefore less involved in the local economy. It says here even big companies like Coca-Cola and Constellation Brands report that their Hispanic customers are withholding some of their $2 trillion in spending power, and Latinos aren't the only immigrant group affected. So if anything, Coca-Cola is saying we are seeing some, it's at least noticeable drop in what these folks are spending on our products. By the way, that's very different than arguing that the Hispanic community is now going to go off and take that $2 trillion and develop a soda company that rivals Coca-Cola for the Hispanic community, which is often argued. That's often the point made in terms of what black people should be doing in starting our own and becoming more independent. But the point being, that's not how buying power can be measured or even theoretically applied, because it's not a pool of wealth or resources that can be marshaled and put and distributed however some community determines. There is no Hispanic Council of Consumption that says this is where we're going to put our $2 trillion. That's not how it works. This is an aggregate estimate and projected total based on survey data, largely survey data of consumers. But the point here being that the buying power that would be somehow measured as benefiting those who own the economy, like Coca-Cola and Constellation and other elite companies, isn't there as much. And then the small businesses in the area that are dependent on the local traffic are suffering as well. And then as an indirect quick reminder as to what circulating dollars are and are not, circulating dollars within a poor community that owns very little and earns very little is not something that can evolve into wealth for that community. The real circulation is the expenditure and loans and debt and investment all happening on a global scale, because ultimately, and this is something that forward-thinking internationalists, actual leftist progressive economists and theoreticians have been noting for a few hundred years now, if not longer. The economy is global and interconnected. What happens here does impact what happens overseas and vice versa. And that's why, not to put an oversimplified point on it, but that's why Marx and Engels were saying, workers of the world unite. A throw pillow sized bag of dried sardines imported from Tanzania used to retail for $25. Now it's $35. And bad as things are now for some immigrant businesses, they may be about to get much worse. Eric Rodriguez of Unidos US says President Trump's mass deportation drive is ramping up. So just the political power that results in policy that impacts tariffs and trades and importation and interest rates and so on and so forth, and retail prices, is impacting labor and economies from here in the United States, throughout Latin America, and even to a certain extent there in Tanzania in terms of the importation of sardines. All right, and this one was sent to me, and we're back. I'm a little late with getting to this one, but we're back to looking at something that Godfrey said here in a discussion apparently about celebrity, pop culture, entertainment, and the value of Black entertainment or Black entertainers to the industry. But again, I think some very important points are being missed here. But here we go.
Shaft saved, I think it was Warner Brothers, saved Warner Brothers from bankruptcy because they were going bankrupt, and Shaft was $500,000 budget. They made $12 million.
Wow.
Richard Roundtree saved Warner Brothers. My friend used to work for Stan Lee, who created Marvel. I met Stan Lee 3 times, hanging out with Stan Lee in his office on Santa Monica in LA. He was at Power Entertainment when he left Marvel. I'm sitting there talking to Stan Lee. He's 89 years old. Now you think about it, as a kid, I'm talking to the man who created Spider-Man. And he's like, Godfrey, I want to show you something about Spider-Man. He's telling me everything. I'm listening to this dude. Like, I can't believe I'm talking to Stan Lee. He goes, I want to show you. Yeah, you see, he had a big picture of Wesley Snipes, Blade. He goes, yeah, Wesley Snipes, I tell you, Wesley Snipes. Wesley saved Marvel. We were going bankrupt. If it weren't for Wesley Snipes in 1999, we would have been in bankruptcy. Black person saving, again, a company. Black people sell. You look at In Living Color, saved Fox. The halftime, remember the halftime celebration? Who saved it? Michael Jackson saved it. That shit was going down. Empire saved Fox again. Empire with
Taraji P. Henson.
Terrence
Howard.
And Terrence Howard saved Fox.
And Fox got payback against us for re-promoting and popularizing Terrence Howard, but not to digress.
Black people saved it. Stars, Black people saved it. Black people saved it.
Like for saving Fox, look what Black people got. More popularity for Terrence Howard.
No, it's just this old adage of hatred and not wanting, and this fear of other people's success. They got to get over it. We're all good, man. If people think if we get into a certain power, we're going to act the same way you did. We're not like that.
So again, what Godfrey, this is something that happens all the time, but what Godfrey unfortunately here is missing, at least as far as this clip goes, is that the reason the success Black people bring to white-owned, in this case, media companies, is not just about finance, and it's not limited just because, as he's suggesting here, white people are afraid of Black people assuming power and then doing to whites what was done to Black people. The primary function of pop culture in this country, in the United States, is not to make profit, to earn money, to create wealth. That's not the primary function. The primary function is, or involves, something more akin to psychological warfare, counterinsurgency, the suppression of radical consciousness, this could be summarized or simplified or given euphemism as being described as entertainment for affluent white audiences. That's certainly been the part of the overt purpose of pop culture and media in this country from before this country was in fact a country. This predates the so-called American Revolution, the use of black performance for white entertainment, and while also distributing potential rebelliousness and angst and tension, redistributing that energy through acceptable sanctioned performance. This is something that has been routine and part and parcel of the maintenance of colony. This is the whole point, as we've talked recently about Frantz Fanon's discussion of Algeria and the function that Radio Alger played for the French colonists in Algeria in confirming and reaffirming their settler colonial righteousness, their just position. So when Stan Lee or anyone else is saying a black character or black product saved white this or white that, has always been the case. That is part of the design. The confusion is the encouragement that this reality be reframed as a potential power that black people have that could be marshaled differently. It's a sort of entertainment version of the buying power mythology. It only exists as a quote unquote power to the extent it appeases white owners, affluent white audiences, and maintain certain dominant narratives in the shaping of public opinion. Then, of course, there is the need to sell certain products. There's the need to sell certain ideologies, propaganda, military propaganda, imperial narratives of history. All of those things are important, but as it relates to black performance, it is only about a false projection of what the society is, both domestically and internationally. And again, I think it's important with all his reappearance in pop culture himself, that something Will Smith said decades ago in a discussion about the film Hitch, where, if you remember, he plays a black man who ends up falling in love with a Latina, Eva Mendes, right? And in discussing the promotion of that film, Will Smith said something I think has always been really important to note. He said the reason he was cast against a Latina was because the film companies understood that you can't market a romantic comedy domestically involving a black man and a white woman, that this country doesn't want to see that. Internationally, no one, he said, wants to see a black man with a black woman. So the only thing left, essentially, if maybe not an Asian, is the Latina. Now, to the extent he's right or wrong, I think it's important. I think he's right. But the point is that he was thinking of this. This was part of the discussion whenever that film came out. And it speaks to part of the function here. There is the goal is beyond just finance, but it is about appeasing certain social attitudes, norms, frames, analyses, etc. So having black people, by the way, this was also something that was said in terms of Obama's impact, or hip hop's impact on producing Obama, as if this was a good thing, that hip hop had primed this country and the world for all this black cultural popularity and success, and therefore made it easy for the world in the white world, to ultimately vote for Obama in 2008. But that again also missed the point. There's not meant to, one, it's a neo-colonial projection and promotion and counterinsurgent neo-colonial installation of both hip hop and then its impact in producing an Obama to the extent that they're related. But it's also the point that the popularity of either only exists to appease the owners of the economy, the owners of the political economy, so to speak. So there is no latent power culturally any more than there is in terms of the mythology around buying power in black people being, of course, successful media products and entertainers, and somehow the idea that this would relate to some sort of actual political or economic power. Last but not least, and this is huge in my household because Bad Bunny is a fan favorite in this household. But Bad Bunny Grammy's success, how his wins are transforming opportunities for Latin music artists. Bad Bunny's Un Verano Sin Ti became the first Spanish-speaking album to receive a nomination for the Album of the Year at Grammy Awards in 2023, and now apparently he's doing big things in terms of the buying power market of Latin America. I will say, never been his biggest fan myself, but I do like a lot this on this new album. He has a very traditional classic salsa track on there, Baile Involable, the unforgettable dance, and it is a banger. Get that old classic salsa in there. I also like that apparently Bad Bunny is doing a lot of things to honor his people, his Puerto Rican people, and by giving them exclusive concerts and reduced ticket prices to go see his shows. He's doing shows for them first, exclusively for them first. I'm not mad at that. And apparently he's even doing, he's like telling them, like, don't expect some glitzy, glamoury show. Like, I'm trying to bring it back to the people, and I'm trying to bring it back to some foundational essence. He's even having his band and encouraging people to show up dressed as regular people from the countryside and not trying to come all flashy and flossy and flashy, and like it's like a tribute to his roots, and it's dope. I think that's pretty dope. And so in some ways, at least salute to him. I don't claim to know much more about his politics or his music or anything beyond that, again, other than that he's a fan favorite in my household. But so when I saw this story, I said, "Oh, absolutely! This overlap is crazy." And I do encourage you, if you have any appreciation for what is the second greatest pocket ever, salsa, that you check out his new album and Baile Involable. I think I'm saying that right. But the unforgettable dance is the point. It is a very dope track. And of course, Go-Go, DC's own Go-Go, is the #1 pocket ever produced. But salsa's not far behind, in all due respect. But essentially, what's being said here is that now we do also. Well, I'll come back to that in a second. The economic impact, Latin music's financial breakthrough, the power and influence of Bad Bunny has yielded enormous profits, not only to him but to Latin music as a whole, and of course those who own it. And as I was going to get to in a minute, it's important to point out that his music is distributed with Sony. So again, one of the big three. And then of course it has to be filtered through Spotify and other platforms, YouTube and other platforms. Really not, I should say, the big three: Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers as the record labels, and then Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify as the primary, iHeartMedia, formerly Clear Channel, as the primary dissemination points. Of course, all of this is consolidated with incestuous contracts that assure that popularity is managed and manicured, even when Bad Bunny and others might try to do some minimal things for the people. It's still within in spite of the context in which this industry is still, again, monopolized and consolidated and elite white owned for the most part. In 2024, the revenue in Latin music hit $1.4 billion, which was a staggering 18% growth compared with its previous peak in 2005. The U.S. market was also important as Latin music managed $685 million in revenue, a growth of 7% compared with the previous year. Bad Bunny's success has also been a commercial powerhouse outside of album sales. He made $304 million on his world's hottest tour in 2022. $7 million per performance. And sold more than 2.6 million tickets in 54 stadium concerts in 18 nations. But to the point here, this reflects the increased buying capacity of U.S. Latinos, who currently contribute $3.2 trillion to the GDP based on their buying power, which stands at $3.4 trillion. With such a magnitude of influence, it comes as no surprise that Latin music is spearheading global music consumption as well as cultural trends. Now, again, much like the point I was making about the Godfrey and comments and black performance and media products saving the industry, this is not that much different. The $3.4 trillion in Latino buying power goes to the GDP of this country, which is a measurement of the wealth created by the exchange of all the goods and services in this country, or as I like to prefer to think of it, and I think it's more accurate to think of it, it's a measurement of the wealth generated for those who own the economy. It is not something that can be automatically used to benefit Latino people. Obviously, we see that in this climate, this is not something that translates into some sort of tremendous political power. It is a representation or an estimate or a projection of how Latino customers can enrich those who own the economy. Yes, Bad Bunny and a few other celebrities and Latino business people, etc., much like the black community and others, a few will do quite well individually. But collectively, it is largely benefiting only those who own the economy. And those owners of the economy, even if they weren't white, are still ultimately capitalists and still ultimately interested in enriching themselves and not redistributing wealth in such a way that there is no inequality, poverty, et cetera, and so forth. All right, thanks again, everybody, for checking this out. Again, please do whatever you can to support the platform. And as Fred Hampton used to say, to you we say peace, only if you're willing to fight for it. We'll catch you next time here with more. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.